Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to take a quick second before we move on to tonight's video to tell you about a convention I'm going to be going to. I will be in Houston, Texas at Retropalooza 2018, this coming weekend, July 28th and the 29th. Anyone who would like to swing by, say hey to me, or any of my other YouTube friends are certainly welcome. The convention should be a lot of fun, and I really look forward to being in Houston, Texas again, or actually just being in Texas in general. July 28th through the 29th, Retropalooza Houston. On to tonight's story. Hold the head steady, Mr. Walker. I don't want to cock this up. Swelling waves cause the ship to roll beneath my feet as I do my best to follow Professor Oleg's orders. Unfortunately, the ox is not cooperating. It pulls jerkingly against the rope securely fastened to the ring through its nose while emanating low panicked bellows, its eyes rolling wildly in their sockets. Penned in the makeshift stable below deck, there's nowhere for it to run, even if it wasn't currently on a vessel somewhere in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and several hundred miles from the nearest thing resembling land. Something has the beast terrified, although it could be it simply senses the intentions of the striking woman standing in front of it with an airgun. For fuck's sake, Charlie, I know you can pull a rope tighter than that. I've got the burns on my wrist to prove it. I flash Helen a glare as I struggle with the rope, my cheeks flushing bright red from equal parts anger and embarrassment. She responds with a wicked grin. It's no secret we're sleeping together. That's how I was conned into going on this little cruise after all, but I still don't feel the need to blatantly parade the fact around in front of her father. Dr. Raynard Oleg is a visiting professor out of Oslo, whose expertise is cryptozoology. I haven't realized such a degree even existed, but apparently I'm not as informed as I thought. The Loch Ness Monster, the Wendigo, the Tatzelworm, Oleg has dedicated years of his life to studying and cataloging the stories and legends of these and dozens of other fantastic creatures, going so far as to conduct extensive field research into claims of their existence. Due to his lean, sharp features, surprisingly cunning intellect, and most probably his parents' choice of names, Oleg has been dubbed the Fox, after the French fable in pretty much every circle he inhabits. His daughter, Helen, serves as his primary research assistant, and as such is accompanying him for the duration of his stay at Pocatonic University, where I'm studying for my doctorate in engineering. Her raven black hair and oddly shaded eyes, steel gray flecked with purple, give an exotic, if decidedly un-Nordic appearance. She had the muscle tone of an Olympic gymnast, and at 5'10" could easily be imagined falling from the ranks of the fabled Valkyries. I first saw her at a social mixer last fall, and was immediately taken. Imagine my shock when my lame attempts to talk to her were accepted, and even encouraged. 2 weeks later, we were fucking like it was going out of style. Our relationship stayed on that course for about 6 months, when she informed me that she was going with her father for an extended trip during the summer as part of his research. Would I like to accompany them? The fact that she'd been naked when she asked probably helped guide my decision. That's how I came to be wrangling a terrified ox on a Korean-manned fishing boat 600 miles off the Japanese coast. Wrapping the rope more firmly around my hand, I brace my foot against the bulkhead and pull as hard as I can, momentarily arresting the panicked animal's movements. Hit it! Jesus, hit it now! Helen professionally placed the airgun between the ox's eyes and smoothly depressed the trigger, punching a tiny metal rod through the skull and bone and into the creature's brain. Its eyes rolled back into its skull, and its slack tongue lolled out of its mouth before the ox collapsed to its knees, and finally slumped to the floor on its side. I disentangled myself from the rope. Angry red depressions crisscrossing my hands and up my arms, and wiped the sweat from my forehead. Oh, Christ. Oh, I've never done this before, but, I mean, they usually use a cattle prod or something to stun these guys first. The fox gave me a pinched look. In your typical slaughterhouse, yes, Mr. Walker, but I found it best to avoid these
using electricals whenever possible in these matters. There can be unforeseen complications. Besides, certain research suggests the chemicals released in the brain due to its intense fear serve as something of an intoxicating marinade for more predatory creatures. All the best for our purposes here. Sending the beast beforehand could rob us of a potential advantage. Helen, would you please?
Changing her airgun for an enormous bone saw, Helen enters the pen and begins working on the dead ox's neck. The metal teeth slide through the muscle and tissue as Helen manipulates the saw as smoothly as a lumberjack. It catches briefly when it hits vertebrae, but she pulls the blade free with a sickening, cracking noise of snapping bone before repositioning and continuing her grisly work. I feel my gorge rise to the base of my throat and glance down at the floor, only to leap away from the slowly growing pool of blood that is spread from the pen and now threatens to soak my boots. I hastily move away from the danger zone and turn my eyes from the butchery, desperately wishing that I could turn off the squelching sounds as easily. So, Doc, tell me again exactly what we're doing here? Alec sighs.
As I have explained, Mr. Walker, we are in search of Jormungandr, the World Serpent. Most likely, it and the creature known as Leviathan in Christian traditions are one and the same. Legend has it, the beast is so large it can encircle the world, to the point of holding its own tail in its mouth. Although, that is likely an exaggeration. According to Norse mythology, when Jormungandr releases its tail, it will initiate Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. During the final battle, the serpent will confront its father Loki's hated enemy, Thor, resulting in their mutual destruction. All of my research indicates the creature's head will be located somewhere in this vicinity, near the Mariana Trench, as the lowest point on the planet and one of the few environments not fully explored by humans. It's the most likely location a creature that large could remain relatively undetected.
And it's a fan of ox roast, huh? Alec glares at me.
Yes. In one of the most commonly artistically rendered stories, Thor manages to accidentally catch Jormungandr in his hook, which he baited with an ox head. He attempted to kill the serpent with his hammer, Mjolnir, but oaf that he was, managed to let Jormungandr escape. We were attempting to recreate this event.
But, Professor, what exactly do you plan to do if you actually manage to catch this thing? Finished! Beaming, Helen hefted the severed ox head to her shoulder. Her hands and face were spattered with crimson, and slow trickles of blood continued to seep from the stump of the creature's neck and drip to the floor. Her strange, speckled eyes were alight with excitement and anticipation.
Excellent, my dear. Let's get our bait up on the main deck.
Ignoring my question, the fox turns and leads the way up the stairs. Helen follows closely, carrying her macabre prize. I stay a little behind and glance back at the pen. The ox's body remains slumped where it fell, the muscles of its legs twitching and jerking ever so slightly as the onset of rigor mortis slowly takes hold. I involuntarily shudder and turn away, like the professor and his daughter. Once on the deck, I move to the fore of the ship, where Ulk and Helen are already baiting an enormous meat hook, with the ox head still dripping blood and ichor. The hook is in turn rigged to a large crane that Alec has installed specifically for this excursion. Helen works the controls as Alec guides the grotesque lure over the side and slowly lowers it into the calm seas. So what do we do now, Professor? Fox smiled.
Now, we wait.
And wait we do. For weeks the seas are calm, the sky is clear. Every few days we repeat the exercise below deck with another terrified ox as the seawater rapidly rots the heads to a state where I doubt even a monster would find them appetizing. By the fifth time, I find I've become quite proficient with my duties. I don't know if I'm pleased by this, though. One day is soon lost in the next, with little to distinguish them from the occasional morning slaughter. Our Korean crew tends to the needs of the ship and generally keeps to themselves, leaving us to our own devices. My few brief encounters with individual sailors convey them as a surly lot, Something tells me they feel very little goodwill towards us. It's obvious our strange work frightens them, and it's likely only the fact that Alec is paying them double their normal rate that they're out here at all. Still, money only goes so far, and I wonder not for the first time if this fox has been as transparent with his plans to the captain and crew as he has been with me. It's just as well that the sailors mind their business. As Alec is adamant, only he and Helen operate our makeshift fishing lure. Now this makes for extremely long days for the both of them, and yet it is only due to necessity that he even reluctantly allows me to participate in the preparation of our grotesque bait. As for myself, the biggest threat to contend with is growing boredom. Each day the merciless sun beats down upon the deck of our cloudless sky. The sea's calm and clear as glass. This far out, there are not even birds to watch, and other than the occasional dark spot on the horizon, the existence of land is only a steadily fading memory. Alec and Helen are completely absorbed in their work, and in no mood to socialize. One evening, in desperation, I considered trying to sit in on the sailors' nightly card game to break up the monotony, but the malicious looks I receive as I start towards the group send me hastily retreating to my cabin below. Lying there, feeling the gentle shift of the ship beneath me, and bored almost to tears, I wonder if I can convince the fox to let me cut off the next ox's head. Gradually, the mood of our little research party grows increasingly tense and prickly, mirroring the crew. Tempers are short, and more than once, innocent remarks erupt into full-out arguments. Although we share a bunk, Helen has stopped sleeping with me, the stress of the voyage tempering our previously insatiable libidos. Lying beside her during the few hours we try to rest, I feel the gentle rise and fall of her breathing under my arm and wonder what this trip will ultimately mean for our relationship. Our supply of oxen is quickly dwindling. If we don't find the creature soon, we'll be forced to turn back empty-handed. The question of what to do if we manage to actually hook the beast still remains ominously unanswered, and at this point, I'm hoping that we fail our search. Tonight, I wake only to find myself alone. The spot in the bunk Helen usually occupies beside me is still warm. She can't have been gone long. The ship seems to be rolling considerably more than usual, and I stumble across the cabin several times as I try to get dressed, finally putting on my boots. I go off in search of her and Alec. When I reach the deck, I notice that the sky has turned completely dark. No light from stars or moon alike. Storm clouds above seethe angrily, and the waves beneath respond in kind, rocking the boat more and more violently beneath my feet. The crew is gathered in a tight crowd off to the side surrounding their cabin. I don't speak Korean, but it's obvious they're arguing, and he's attempting to talk them down. Abruptly, one of the sailors steps forward and throws a haymaker, catching the captain in the jaw. He crumples to the deck, and a general melee breaks out around his fallen body. Scanning the deck, it takes me a few moments to locate Alec and Helen near the crane, seemingly oblivious to the weather and the battling seamen. The professor is standing at the rail, his gaze fixed on the churning waters, while his daughter works the controls. I shove my way through the knots of fighting sailors and struggle to make my way to them, as the ship continues heaving to and fro, causing me to stumble like a drunk. The wind has picked up and howls like a banshee, so that I have to shout to be heard when I finally reach Alec. "Professor! It's not safe here! We have to get back below deck!" Freezing rain erupts from the heavens, the screaming winds whipping the drops against my face so hard they sting. Lightning bolts the size of houses flash down from the sky, accompanied by peals of thunder so loud they make my head ring. "Professor!" I grab the man by the shoulder and spin him around, only to fall back in shock. The man facing me bears the resemblance of Alec, certainly. But only just. He's younger. His face, holding an agelessness that makes him seem paradoxically youthful and ancient in equal amounts. His eyes are alight with the glow of madness, his mouth open in a wolfish grin. "It's too late! He's too late to stop me now!" He giggles like a lunatic. "We found it!" Shrieking peals of laughter accompany him, and I turn to where Helen was operating the controls. Gone is the stunning Valkyrie, replaced by a hideous creature. Half of her body is covered in pale, perfect skin, the other half rotting lumps of flesh, the same purplish hue as the flecks in her eyes. Her cackles are lost even as the wind whips itself into an even greater fury. The ship rocks so hard I'm terrified will capsize at any moment. The boat is thrashing too hard for even me to contemplate trying to make it back to the hold. Just as I have this thought, an enormous wave rushes over the deck, sweeping several sailors off the side. Their screams are quickly drowned by the raging storm and they disappear beneath the waves. I spy a coil of rope tumbling across the deck. Desperately grabbing it, I manage to lash myself between two cargo brackets. Helen was right. I pull the ropes very tight. Temporarily secure, I look around. Astonishingly, the man who was Alec has jumped upon the bow, deftly riding the ship like an enraged bronco, raising his arms towards the screaming heavens. He howls into the storm, "Come, brother! Meet your doom!" With that, the largest wave yet slowly tilts the ship so that it's riding almost completely on its side. From where I'm lashed to the deck, I am practically vertical and have a perfect view of the rolling waves disappearing far off into the horizon. In that moment, my mind breaks. From out of the sea protrudes miles and miles of glistening serpentine coils. Scales are the dull colors of seaweed, encrusted with barnacles and all manner of ocean life. An enormous head the size of a mountain erupts from the depths. Blind white eyes fixed above a cavernous mouth, glistening with dozens of rows of fangs. Opening its great wide maw, Leviathan lets loose its battle cry, its roar so loud I feel my eardrums shatter in my skull. In the sky high above, I barely make out the tiny figure of a man at the heart of the storm. Bolts of lightning seem to coalesce around him, filling him with their impossible powers. Shining like the sun, the figure streaks out of the sky like a comet, flying directly at the head of the serpent. The beast rears up to meet its foe, and on impact, the world is enveloped in an incredible blast of white light, brighter than the core of an atomic bomb. The stress of the heaving sea is finally too much, and I feel the ship shatter beneath me. Slowly, the two broken halves descend into the seething waves, and I struggle against the ropes securing me to the deck, but the wet knots slip into my fingers. The restraints that were only moments ago my salvation become my doom in the merest instant. Flailing about for something that I might be able to use to cut the ropes, my fingers grasp only salt water. My frustrated scream is lost in peals of thunder as the vicious battle carries on. As the storm continues to rage, the surety of my fate becomes clear. I relax as the raging waters roll over me, ultimately accepting the inevitable of what is to come, and I breathe in deeply, welcoming water into my lungs, my only thought that I may be one of the lucky ones. And soon even that thought is lost as I sink deeper. My mind is black as the sea that embraces me. Down, down, down to the depths I fall. Lost to the world of men, and gods, and monsters. Tonight's story, The Fishing Trip, by ShadowSwimmer77, is part of the Wicker Saga, a series of ongoing interconnected stories. The rest can be found through the link in the description down below on the CreepyPasta Wikia. And, to get more from ShadowSwimmer77, check him out on Twitter, @ShadowSwim77.